It's the second leading area right behind CNA. And so this was a really good option for us and for our students. Below are the programs at ISU, and you can see how many students applied and then how many were accepted in. And I just wanted to kind of point out the drafting program at ISU that, several years ago, they really only wanted 1 or 2 students. Now they're up to 7. But we had 23 apply. So that's making us now kind of evaluate, is there a way for us to maybe offer a drafting class in the high school to see if they really like it? And if they do, then they could really go on, because there's clearly an interest there. Machining's doing great. This is, one of the highest years we've had. And then this is our first year with the paralegal program. And the students are doing remarkably. It's a lot of reading. That program is a lot of reading. And so they are doing great. They have a great instructor up there who really likes high school students, and she's just thrilled to have them in her program. So all good things. Then I was kind of excited over this, because last year we started that process of doing industry certifications with Microsoft Suite. And this is where the state pays for those licenses for students. It's kind of separate than advanced opportunity funding. But last year, you can see we only had 26 that got a certificate in Word and 26 in PowerPoint. And these numbers are reflective of only first trimester. So we already at Century had 71 kids receive their certificate in Microsoft Word in just one try. I don't have those numbers yet because we're just kind of midway through our second trimester. But clearly this was a focus area for us, was to help kids earn industry recognized certificates, and it's paying off. In fact, one of the stories that came out of Century was that nursing, a girl who wants to become a nurse, she was kind of saying, well, I don't know, I guess I could take the test. I don't really know if I want to or not. But because she did and she passed, it gave her a little advantage in getting a job, which will then in turn help her get into the nursing program, in a better way. So even though she's not really becoming an administrative assistant, she's going into the health field, it's still a huge benefit. And then these are the numbers for the Adobe for first trimester, which we had very few. I'm sorry.
Can we go back to the
Oh,
previous
sure.
slide? So we're showing Excel, but we have Word, and then is that an
Oh,
Word?
yeah, sorry.
No
yeah.
Excel?
No, it was
Yeah.
supposed to say Excel. I just messed up.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I didn't know if there was another level of Word that, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay, great.
I just
Thank you.
I just messed up that.
No,
Sorry. Here's our certificates for ServSafe. And remember, that's the 10-hour online program that they take during nutrition and foods. And all restaurants just love it when they have someone come in who's already ServSafe certified, because they know they have the basics down. And so last year we had 37 students all year. Fall trimester, we had 55. So, clearly the emphasis on industry certificates is working, and kids are responding. They like that. They like having something like that to be able to go out and show someone.
We missed that Adobe one right up above, last one, right up above that one. Yeah. that
Oh,
one.
so these are the numbers from first trimester,
Okay. All right.
okay? And then this is about our CNA program. It is the largest number of openings in the health field. And so, we really try to get as many students through that program as possible. There's always students who are, on a wait list to get in there. And so, but it's important that once they go through the program, they also need to sit for the test. And so this is just reflective of what Jen Parker sent me, this little paragraph, and she said, all 20 students at the end of the first trimester came out with their CPR certification for health providers. They had all done a 32-hour practicum, and they successfully completed the course. In addition to that, 16 of them had already passed their industry certificate testing, and only 4 more needed to set and schedule. So, we're doing a lot better, because some of our students take the CNA program with the full intention of never becoming a CNA, but they know they want to do something in the health field. And so we're encouraging them to go ahead and take the test. It can be paid for with advanced opportunity funding, and if they never use it, then that's really up to them. But we don't want them to have a missed opportunity by not taking the test. And so, and they are prepared. So. Oh. That was a little strange. Last year we had 313. Last year we had 313 people complete a pathway of some type, and so I listed these out for you, and that's pretty. I think that's a pretty big accomplishment. Most of those are seniors, and so about a third of all seniors are completing some kind of a pathway, and in a specific area. Now to our funding, because this is always, we never really know exactly what we're getting. It always seems to be kind of an estimate until the checks start coming in. But this year we should get about $814,000. That funding goes to help pay for all kinds of things, mostly supplies and equipment. It helps us with, taking kids on field trips to places that they might not be otherwise able to go on. And, we really appreciate the state of Idaho not cutting CTE funding. It's very important, and it really does give students, an insight to a career option that maybe they wouldn't otherwise be able to even know about. And so it's great to be able to have that line item within the budget. And it sounds like Governor Little is very, very supportive of CTE and recognizes the need for, technicians and people to be able to go out and do jobs.
Does the Perkins grant cover something different than regular CTE stuff?
So the Perkins grant was just actually rewritten, and so we're kind of all learning about what the changes are right now. But what the Perkins grant is really designed for is to help program pathways. And so it wouldn't be something that if we decided to, I don't know, start a one only class that didn't have a pathway, we wouldn't really be able to have Perkins funds help that. But as long as it's a pathway and it's leading towards something, some post-secondary or some industry certificate, we can use Perkins dollars for that. And so, but it still doesn't let us, we can't supplant anything. We can't duplicate something that district would be providing for any other program. So it has to be kind of those above and beyond things. Okay?
Did the governor's support of the CTE program result in any increase in funding?
Well, I don't know that he's proposed anything yet in his budget. I think he has a lot of really great plans. But of course, that will have to go through JFAC and, the education committee and be approved of. But I think he's very acutely aware that there are certain areas, and cybersecurity is one of them, that we need to start growing our own people into those positions. And, and I think that the site is very, very much behind that also, because we don't have enough people. And so I think that the governor is very, very interested in that. He's, that's at least what he's expressed.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him personally, but that's at least what he has expressed.
Yeah, he's voiced a lot of support for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Rhonda, I wondered about industry funding.
Mhm.
I know that in different areas, certain industry will donate so much to the CTE programs.
Right.
Depending on what they have and things and that. And how do we attempt to get funding like that? That's what I'm
Mhm.
wondering, because that's got to be a big part of it, to get industry around our area somehow to help fund some of these things.
We, as far as I know, the industry is very supportive. In fact, I was just sharing with Doug this morning that the governor sent a representative to come and see some of our programs. She's traveling around the state, and she was very impressed. And so she wanted to have a list of all of our programs, how many students were in them, and what business partners were associated with those programs. And I thought, wow, this is going to be really interesting, because I don't always know all the players at all the tables because I can't make all the meetings. And so it's been very interesting. I have about half the teachers that have reported in now, and we're up to 79 local businesses that are actively involved with these CTE, programs and pathways and kids. And so we've never asked them for any money. And yet I know that there are companies that have donated things, they've donated equipment, or they've donated time. They come in and they're guest speakers for us, or they have us on tours of their companies. Because I think it's becoming very clear that we are the pipeline to their future employees. And so they want these kids to be successful. They want them to be interested and excited, but we've never really right out asked them for any money. Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't donate, if we did have a plan and said, this is what we need the money for. I think there are some companies in this community that would be right with us. I mean, they'd be very, very supportive because they've already built that relationship with the teacher and the kids and the program, and they realize that's where the growth is really going to come from. So right now, we don't have any industry, what I would call industry money, but it's not that I don't think we could.
Right, and I think maybe that's an area we should look at, maybe increasing, somehow going after more funding for this program from industry and business, and I don't know, Courtney, if that, something you could look at, or all of us, but I think it's something we really need to start doing if we really want this program to move forward. We need to start looking at going to some industry and business.
Yes, I think so. I think so. It's definitely worth another conversation and,
Can't do it all, I realize.
yeah. All right. So as far as our future goals, some areas that we're still really looking at, of course, we always work closely with the Department of Labor to find out where the jobs are going to be. There's a lot of interest in the unmanned aerial systems, the drones. And, we want to see what that would maybe look like. Dental assisting is probably just not really a possibility for us right now, but we are working with workforce development, and they have offered to create a cohort group for just our high school students, and they'd be able to go up there, use their facility and instructor. So it would just be almost like the paralegal program or the drafting program. So that's a great option. Obviously, medical assistant is up and running and doing great. And the cybersecurity was something we talked a lot about last year, and those classes are being taught right now, and they are full. I mean, Chantel Reddish is just doing a great job, and those kids just can't get enough. And so I know that she's been talking with ISU and Paul Bodley about possibly a second class, even doing some dual enrollment credit with this, because there's clearly a need and there's an interest. And so we're not teaching anybody to do anything bad, but you have to have people who understand these systems in order to be able to work through the problems that come up.
And last year, I thought they said the INL was especially interested.
Yes, they are.
So is the FBI.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have some local area entities.
Mm-hmm. And there are jobs out there for them. And so this is something I'm sure this area will expand. I mean, I can see those numbers just probably escalating even this year. And of course, we're still exploring the CTS building options of, do we build something? Do we buy something that's already there and remodel? That's an ongoing conversation that's still very active. And, we'll just see where that takes us in the next few months. So that's about all of CTE overview. Everything's going great. Kids are happy, coming to school, doing well. We're doing well. So do you have any other questions?
I think that last bullet, Mrs. Knapp's, actually entails a little bit about what Mrs. Craner was talking about. And you and I visited about that just this morning.
Yes.
Corporate partners and financial support. And then also,
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind, will you just touch on new director and your
Oh.
relationship?
Yes. So Career Technical Ed has a new director at state level. His name is Clay Long. I've actually known Clay since he was a sophomore in high school. He's a great, great man, very energetic, has some great plans, and, really is just so excited to be the lead person on this. He has all the skills he needs to be able to, he's quite a statesman, and he really understands how to work through the political maneuvers of being in Boise, and yet very, very, very supportive of local districts, large and small. He comes from a tiny little district in North Idaho, so he understands what that's like to grow up in a community with, very, very few CTE options. And so it will be it's a great move. I miss Dwight. I think Dwight Johnson did a great job for us and really did help CTE financially. He was able to increase the amount of funding over his, time in that position. But, best wishes to him. People make choices to do other things. And so, but Clay will be really, really good for us. And so I'm excited to work with him at that level. So,
Can you address the surrounding school district participation?
well, there is an interest. We always have a few students from other districts that call and they'd like to be in our programs, primarily the health professions field, because especially with CNA, you have to have an RN, and it can't be just any RN. It has to be an RN with certain work experience. And so it's very difficult to find someone like that to be able to come in and teach your students. And so we allow students to come in and take our program if they don't have a program. So for example, with Marsh Valley, they have a business program and they have an ag program, but they don't have anything in health professions. So right now we have 2 students doing the CNA program and 1 student who actually is driving in every single day for the EMT program. And so I know that they're interested in a career center. Not that we would not, our agreement with these school districts is we don't allow the students to come here and take a program if they're already offering it, because we don't want to destroy anything that they already have or take away from their students. But it doesn't cost the districts anything. They don't lose any ADA for their students to come here, and that's the offset of what the CTS funding is supposed to help pay for, is that those students that might be traveling in. But we've had students from Blackfoot, from Fort Hall, from American Falls that have all, at one time or another come in and taken a program because they don't have any other options. But that has to be a student who's kind of made a plan ahead of time so that they have drive time and, everything, because it is a little bit of a ways, so. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see.
Next up, we're gonna have
do you want me
a
to
discussion of the school plant facilities levy. Courtney, Bart?
Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You want to go first?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. Kind of good to have something to look at. Yeah. Sure. Okay, so we have finalized the facts and information that will go out to our constituents and voters locally. It is going to be sent out to get just a little bit of design put to it so we can call out specific information. But we have looked at this as a district team to make sure that everything is informational only and still communicates the message, all the messaging that we need it to convey. Why won't this go? Okay, there we go. So we just start out, what is the school plant facility levy? What those levy monies will pay for, specifically that they pay for building repairs and improvements, upgrades to school furniture. And then we thought it was really important to provide some project examples. So major projects that have been funded over the last 10 years specifically, including the construction of New Horizon, renovation and reopening of Alameda Middle School, elevator and ADA accessibility, the construction of Iron Horse Stadium, as well as improvements to other middle school and high school tracks. Improvements to Pocatello High School, that's all a big one that's been in the news over the past year and a half, including phase 2 that will be upcoming, and then parking lot improvements to address safety concerns at some of our elementary schools and middle schools. We also thought it was important to convey what is not covered. So we have a section on that. And then, of course, talking about how the levy requires 55% of votes to pass. So just a little bit more than a simple majority. And then talking about how long that's been in place. We also put together some numbers that will communicate how, most people when we go out on presentations want to know how this levy will impact me. So we have an impact statement here talking about where the current levy projection, what people are paying now and what we estimate people will paying, and then the estimated additional cost to taxpayers based on this current levy rate. So we really thought it was important to show the numbers that we know now that are factual rather than just giving projections. That's always a little bit dicey. These facts, this is not a new tax but a renewal, so we try to use the word renewal wherever we can. Again, what is not covered. It's important to note that we paid off all general obligation debt in 2016, so that reduces the district's long-term need for long-term debt through the bonding process, and that our general fund does not have the ability to support facilities. And then, of course, we have voting information. So this will be a supplement, this handout. We will have this to hand out to all of our presentations that will be upcoming. Those are being scheduled now. But in supplement to this, we are also producing a video, and that video will be ready by the first presentation, which is at the end of January. So do you have any questions on this draft?
Mrs. Craner, I know there was some discussion last time. Did that chart help you out a little bit better
Well,
than what we presented earlier?
I see estimated additional cost.
Yeah, and that's what
That's
you're,
the first thing I see. I mean,
Yeah.
I just look at that.
uh-huh,
So to me, that means my taxes are gonna go up,
uh-huh.
and as I understood it, they're not really going to be going up that much, is that right? Or because
Well, if you look at that estimate on there, if you look at on a monthly basis, it's just a little over $1 to support that. Another thing that's kind of important that we'll try to communicate is that we're basing that off of the levy this year, this fiscal year, but this levy would not go into effect for 2 more years. I mean, we have this is a 9th year of our school plant facility levy. Our 10th year will be next year, and then this would go into effect the following year after that. So we're having to project 2 years out based upon a known levy rate that we have right now. So these rates are as close as we can get them to what we think that they may be, but they may come in even less than what we're projecting, especially if our market value continues to increase as it has the past number of years. So, we don't like to guess. We like to go off of what we know right now and say this is the most relevant and current information that we have that we can share with you at the present time.
What else affects those levy rates?
Well, market value is a big indicator that affects those levy rates. That's going to be the largest single indicator. And of course, this is only the school district portion of what we're talking about as far as the levy rates go. There's another fact that we shared up there, the second to the last one. It says the district has paid off all general obligation debt. For a school district, we're the 5th largest school district in the state of Idaho. It's unusual and probably even rare that we do not have any outstanding bonded debt. Many districts, you get up in the Boise area, they may have hundreds of millions of dollars in bonded debt. We have paid all of ours off, and so we are being as frugal and as wise as we can in utilizing taxpayer dollars to fund operations for our district in Pocatello and Chubbuck area. So we feel very good that our tax rates are not higher than what they have been in the past, but this is our best guess right now. So that's kind of a long-winded answer. I apologize about that. But
So how many districts have a plant facilities levy?
I do not know the exact number. There are a significant number that do have them. I would say that if I had to go off the top of my head, I would say less than half of the school districts across the state have a school plant facility levy. But we do know that 84% or close to 85% of school districts do have supplemental levies. So far fewer percent have a school plant facility levy.
And some of those who don't, haven't been able to maintain their facilities.
They either haven't been able to maintain their facilities, or they have a lot of outstanding bonded debt that they've used to supplement their needs in their local district.
And I think that's what I see with Idaho Falls. They seem to have a lot of bonded debt. and
They do.
For a lot more, and then they don't maintain their buildings. So, I mean, that's just.
And
that's just the-
we have had very strong educational support in our community for schools in general, but very strong support also for maintenance or maintaining the school plant facility levy. I think that this is going into the next decade, 7th decade of support for our school plant facility fund. So we've had 60 years of support for our school plant facility, and this would be for another 10-year request for the same purpose.
Any more questions on the handout?
Now, this March 10th election, this is a general election?
It's a primary.
Primary,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I.
So both Republican and Democrat presidential candidates, as well as local state legislature candidates will be on the ballot.
Yeah.
So Bannock County estimates the last time we had an election in a presidential year, it was about
8,900.
upwards of 9,000 voters, but they anticipate that will rise even higher because the Democrats caucused during the last presidential election, and they are not doing that this year. They will be on the ballot, so that voter turnout will rise.
All right.
And is this also eligible for early voting?
Yes, it is,
Mhm.
and that information is on here as well. So early voting begins Tuesday, February 18th, and it will end the Friday before the election on March 6th. And that will be at the Bannock County Courthouse.
Where these presentations are going to be held.
So I will go over, so we will do a similar speakers bureau,
There's another attachment
Okay.
to
as well as our normal communication. So we'll use Infinite Campus. As soon as we get this document finalized, this will be uploaded through our messaging system to parents immediately. I'm hoping as early as tomorrow, but definitely before Friday. So that parents know that there is an election coming up. We will use our other communication tools as a district, like our reader boards reminding people to vote. We used Facebook and Infinite Campus messaging and emails to remind people to vote the week before the election and the day of the election. So that's a really great tool that we can use to communicate information. And then, let me try to zoom on this.
I think as you look at those presentations that are up there, between now and the election, we'll probably do close to 50 presentations, if
There
not
are
more.
63
63.
total, and so we're still, but you see everything from K-12. So this is a mixture of community presentations and then communications to our school staff, as well as our PTAs and PTO organizations at our schools. So we have tried to hit, we didn't have every single one of those on the supplemental levy, so Sean and I have been working really hard to make sure that we get all those PTAs and PTOs represented as well. But everything from the League of Women Voters to Alameda Middle School PTO, Syringa PTO, Centennial Rotary, Gate City Rotary, the Realtors, Local Realtors Association, and then on the second page, there are still quite a few that we're working on scheduling. But we've got nearly 50 scheduled. I think the last count was like 46, and then And this will be available to you. Welcome any board member participation at these presentations. Just let us know so that we can put your name down in the column so that we can expect you.
So these last ones don't have dates as
No.
of yet?
No, but we have reached out to every single one of them, just waiting to hear back. And some of these, as of this morning, have already been scheduled. I just had this in the packet. So maintenance and transportation and food services have all been scheduled as of this morning.
Okay.
So this will just continue to be updated, and I will make sure that Renee has the most current copy as we move closer to these presentation dates. They will begin, as you can see, our first, we're going to talk about it at K-12, just to, let administrators know. We've kind of been just suggesting it as we go along. And then Doug will talk about at the chamber board this Friday. And then we'll really start hitting the presentations as of January 27th. That gives me a few short weeks to get the video completed.
Yeah. We're looking forward to the video, though.
Yeah, the video
It'll
will
really showcase.
will really show, it's really just a video version of this document, information document, but it will show visualization of the projects that have been completed. So I think it will be a good representation of the work that's been done.
So, and will those pictures primarily come from the work that we do and that the board sees at the end of every summer? Is that
Yes,
Mhm.
so
where
Bart
we're
has
going this
provided
way?
many videos, and then I've gotten some video from schools as well. So some marching bands at Iron Horse competing to show that facility. Sean Phelps has sent me some video of their media assistant walking up to Pokey, so you can really see that new entryway. So yeah, we've compiled some really good footage.
Great.
We'll also showcase some technology that, this supports technology in our classrooms too. So we'll showcase some of that as well.
You know, what I've noticed in my dealings in our society here, none of these people have ever been in a school. Or if they have, I don't know, they weren't looking. But what we have here is, it's quite impressive. Our schools, they're 70 years old, and they're good looking.
Right.
They are, and we should invite these people, maybe not attend to a PTA or PTOs, whatever, but these others, the Civitans, the Rotary.
Mm-hmm.
The Rotary should go to a school and show your ID and take a tour. Any school. I think they'd be proud.
And just like Dave and I were at Franklin, but I mean, just looking at the new tile,
Yes.
the new
No,
floors,
Yes.
Right.
and the new entrance
Oh,
there,
my
you know, as I walked up to there, and I remember going there before, and the concrete on the steps crumbling, and
afraid you're gonna-
everything, and I look at that and I thought, in fact, I saw a school on TV for something else, and they showed outside, which it looks like Franklin used to, and I thought, they should talk to our people and fix this, but
That's one
but,
thing.
it's really true, and you look at those things that are so much safer and so much better, and just the, people take all that stuff for granted.
Yes. they-
And
Our schools are really reflective of our school plan facility fund and the support that we received from the community to do that over the years.
Mhm.
Our schools would nowhere look like they do now. They wouldn't have some of the amenities and wouldn't be as safe and as good as a educational environment within that school. We've really personalized a lot of our schools with color, some of the school spirit and things of that nature over the last 10 or 15 years. And it's really made a remarkable difference. It makes a difference on how well maintained the kids keep the schools as well, that they have
Mhm.
more pride in their school, and so they take better care of it. And so as we've done that over the last, 10 or 15 years, it's made a big difference. And it wouldn't be possible without a school plan facility levy and the support that we receive from that. So I think the video that Courtney is putting together will reflect and showcase and help demonstrate what anyone could see if they went into our schools on any given day.
And you know, I bet I remember 10 years ago, some parents calling me and about in tears about their child was handicapped and needing an elevator to go to Franklin or so, or, you know, and just different things, and that money has provided, you know, and I remember how grateful they were when that actually happened.
Right.
You know.
And the video will really be a visual representation of some of that work, and like showing the school colors and showing how that improves the school culture. We have to be very careful how we couch it and the things we say about it, but we can show it on the video, and so I'm hoping that it's a really good support to that message.
There's another piece, and that is, I was at Jefferson for my last school visit, and when a facility has to get adapted for new needs within the school, and how important that is to teachers, that to me is another big piece. They are much happier in their facility, and it is a part of maintenance, but it's also staying up with what's changing.
Yeah,
And-
it's an ever-changing environment, and this is a far more cost-effective process or way in which we maintain our facilities, as opposed to waiting, knowing that we have a problem, or we need to make changes, or we need to do some things different in our buildings, and not having the funding available to be able to do that. And then you wait 2 or 3 or 10 years to make those changes. They cost far more money down the road than if we can address some of these issues at the present time.
And I don't know if you can do this in your video or what, but I was surprised at kids' response to the new offices and things at Pocatello High
Right.
School. You know, and I mean, I've just, something that I thought these kids wouldn't think much about, and yet, you know, just to see kids' opinions of how they feel about this, you know,
Right.
how do they feel about the Iron Horse Stadium? Or,
We have to stay strictly informational.
do we?
So
Yeah.
So we
showing
can't say-
opinion, no,
Yeah, that's-
unfortunately. We're just hoping that that message speaks for itself.
Okay.
But I agree.
Yeah, as you'll recall, a couple of years ago, that's when we can't promote or endorse. We just have
Yeah.
to share information.
We're not
So you have to-
doing it right.
You have to,
Right, and
But what are they gonna do, fire me? Put me in jail?
you have to
So
be
that's-
very
See what I
careful
think?
with even using the words
The
like,
board could do that.
No, we're not
David,
supposed
so
to.
we
Not
can
to-
do
Not
that.
in these meetings.
not in these meetings, but out in,
If you could talk to
In
your
public.
neighbor.
Yeah, you can talk to your neighbor.
yeah.
Okay.
you
But
can
not
do it in
these
an informal setting, just not in a formal public arena. But even using words like cost-effective, that could be seen as promotional. So it really is, it becomes very tricky to be informational only, but I think we've done a pretty good job at it.
So, you the gatekeeper, when we volunteer, do we go to you?
You
or
make,
do we
yeah,
go to
or Renee. Mhm.
One of us send
Yep.
it out.
And say, I can make this meeting, and, okay, all right.
I was just thinking I should stay home and keep my mouth shut.
Maybe go out on the street with a sandwich board or something, I don't know. Long
I
as it's-
still think it's good to show participation and support and have your faces out and about as we talk about this.
Okay.
Would love to have you at any that you can attend.
Okay. So I'll have to look up the dates, okay, I'll do that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bart,
you.
Thank you.
You're gonna stay and
I will.
talk to us about Bonneville.
Okay, just a brief update on former Bonneville Elementary School property. You'll recall that on December 10th, the board formally authorized the district to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with NeighborWorks of Pocatello. And we did do that. I have probably talked with Mark Dahlquist, who's the executive director of that organization, probably every other week or so. We've stayed in contact. He is working hard behind the scenes. There's a lot that he is doing in regard to his due diligence, making sure that they're just very sure about what they want to do and where they're going. And everything has been leading in a very positive direction. I can share with you most recently that on Thursday of this week, we'll open the doors up over there for a pre-bid walkthrough of Bonneville with the contractors that are looking at giving them some bids for taking down that building so that they can get some of that housing started. So that will happen Thursday. I believe sometime before the end of this month in January, the mid-January date range, somewhere around the 23rd, 25th, somewhere around there, that they're looking at opening up the bids for that demolition. And then they have an executive board meeting scheduled for the following day. So we should hear by the end of this month whether this is a go or a no-go on their behalf. The 60 days is up on February 8th, I believe it is. So, the time is running to the end. And he did indicate that they thought that they would use the majority of those days before they got a decision to us, just because of working with their board and the timeline of bidding and getting all that information. So everything seems to be leading toward that this will go through, but until it happens, we don't know for absolute certainty. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Have we, those modules, they're modules in the back, right? Around the corner?
Uh,
Pardon me?
Yeah.
They're modules.
Annex is what we,
Yeah.
We call it annex, but it's a module. Are we gonna remove those? or-
no, they're permanent.
That's
Yeah,
a permanent
it's-
Oh, there's a
structure. Yeah,
permanent.
that's on it's kind of a slab on grade,
Okay.
cinder block building, so it really cannot be,
Okay,
thank you,
no,
Renee.
fine. I thought they were movable.
They have been vacated, though,
Okay,
all that space, and relocated to Gateway.
is, just on the side, is Chuck gonna move his office up there?
No.
That's a nice,
I don't know what
View.
green or fairway that
Nice
might overlook,
view,
but yeah.
but that's-
And I
Whatever.
did notice didn't you have a parent meeting, or is one scheduled in the Gateway Complex? Or
Probably last night.
was
I
that
think it
last night?
was,
That you're using that facility for some of those meetings?
yes.
and things too? It's by Highland. It
the old
used-
Japanese, center?
Used to be the,
JACL.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
and what did we used to have? We used to have,
Gifted and talented
yeah,
there.
gifted and talented.
Yeah.
program in there.
And before that, I think we had teen parent,
Teen Parent was there before that,
and then gifted.
for a number of years.
So they're
So our maintenance department worked really hard to get that building up and going before the first of the year.
using
And so it's ready, and it's very nice, clean, accommodating facility for professional learning, so.
Okay. Good.
Okay, are we ready to get into capital improvement? As you know, this is a big process to get through our capital improvement program planning, and we spend a considerable amount of time looking at our projects. We don't just take the funds that we have and say, well, it would be nice to do this, or it'd be nice to do that. We look at all the needs district-wide, and we don't look at them just for the immediate present, but we look at them over at least 5 years, because we only have a finite amount of money that we have to spend, and we have to determine how it is that we can best spend those dollars in our schools and our facilities. So this is the committee member makeup of our capital improvement program. It consists of the elementary secondary director, myself as the director of business, athletic director, which is a new position that we've added to this committee this year, a couple of school board representatives, which are Mrs. Craner and Mr. Vitale, the other one, correct? And then on our maintenance side and some of our technology people as well. So we have a good committee. We work well together. I think we all understand the needs that we have within the district, and we all have kind of our own little area that we have a focus on that we protect and that we have an interest in. But we work together as we look at these projects. This is just kind of the timeline and a snapshot here. July through September, we're inspecting all of our facilities. We're looking at the different needs, and those needs change month to month, year to year as we look throughout our facilities. In October, we start submitting the request for our major projects, and then sometime by then in November, we look at, the committee meets to consider the estimated resources that we have available for these projects. And then somewhere between November and December, we finalize those recommendations to bring to you as a board of trustees for approval. And then the work begins to start putting together a lot of these out for competitive bids. And that takes a lot of process. Typically, we'll have 20 to maybe 30 bids in any given fiscal year, depending upon the type of projects that we have. This is kind of a look at the estimated revenues that we have. You'll see the first line down on there where it shows $6,103,000. That is the school plant facility levy that Mrs. Fisher and myself were just talking about. This is the bulk of our funding for our plant facilities here, and so it is a very important part of the maintenance of our schools. The next largest component is our state lottery and our maintenance match, which is about $900,000. That is up a little bit the last couple of years as the economy has recovered and as more people participate in some of those sorts of things. Our state bus depreciation just short of $400,000 there. And then the sale of assets is our annual auction that we have in July, that we sell a few of our obsolete property that we have within the district. Our estimated beginning fund balance is much larger than what it typically is. It's sitting at about $10.5 million. For the school plant facility fund. This is not general fund, but our school plant facility fund. And the reason for that is that this is a carryover for phase 2 of Pocatello High School that we have gone over a 2-year period of trying to get that work. So our estimated resources are sitting just short of $18 million in our school plant facility fund at the present time. This graph here just represents how important that school plant facility levy is in our district, where 83% of those dollars come to fund our schools for our plant facility needs. This is the first look of what we call our required or maintenance of effort type of expenditures, meaning these are the things that we really have to do, that we need to do in our facilities to keep them up and to keep them maintained, and so that they're not in disrepair. I brought with me, and you've seen this, and we used to provide you with a copy of this for your nighttime leisure reading, but these are the 5-year schedules, from boilers to carpeting to asphalt replacement, vehicle replacement, restrooms, etc., that we go through. And we spend an inordinate amount of time going through this, because this becomes our vision for the next year and for the next 5 years as we look at our plant needs. You can see up there on that first line on replacement schedules, we're sitting at $5,152,000, which is up a little bit from what we've been in the past, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The next line items under there are the equipment for the departments, for the schools, and for different directors, and we tried to hold those amounts fairly constant over about $300,000 or a little bit more from year to year. So we're looking at about $5,500,000 of estimated required maintenance of effort type expenditures in our school plant facility fund. This is a summary of the replacement schedules. You can see the various values going through there. One thing that I will point out at the top of the sheet there is when you look at asphalt running tracks, that category right there, we have Alameda and Irving scheduled to be replaced. And there is some discussion about where we're going to go with our recommendation for athletic facility needs. Tanya Wilkes, who is chairing that committee with our outdoor facilities committee, we have a meeting, I believe it's Thursday of this week, and that will be the second of a number of meetings that we will have. And hopefully, I'm not exactly sure what the timeline is, but we will be coming back, or she will be coming back to visit with you in regard to some final recommendations that we would make to the board for maybe some short-term and long-term needs with our outdoor facilities. So that's why you see that amount up there. That may or may not happen depending upon where those recommendations come in. You can see that there's a sizable amount in buses, $733,000. We are having to purchase 2 or 3 more buses this year, primarily to handle special education needs for one thing, and also to address some increased ridership and some just more routes that we've had to add for student transportation. We have a sizable amount in the middle of the sheet under HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, $735,000. Believe it or not, when we, Mr. Mattson, you talked about our schools being 70 years old. A lot of our schools are much older than that, but our baby school, if you will, Century High School, is now more than 20 years old, our newest school. And those heat pump units that are in that school are starting to fail. So this year alone, we are replacing the front half of the school, and that's about 75 to 80 units. And next year, we're going to have to replace the remainder part of the school to bring that all up to date. On the tails of that, at the same time, 20 years ago, was Pocatello High School when we replaced all the heat pump units in that school. And we are having to delay some of the improvements to the HVAC system there until we get through Century, and then we can move full bore into replacement of some of those units in Pocatello High School. So we are going to see a little bit of an uptick in our replacement schedules and the needs and the demands that we have in HVAC, roofing, and some other needs as we go through the next 2 or 3 years until we get caught up with that a little bit. Overall, you can see at the bottom that $5,152,000 in those schedules. And this graph here just kind of is reflective of how you'll see that little bit of an uptick here in the last year or so, where that's probably going to go up a little bit until we get some of these major improvements and renovations done for our systems in our schools.
Just go back
Mhm.
to the one that's the replacement schedule. You've got bid, and Y, I assume, means yes.
Yes,
And there's one N, which probably means no.
correct.
But what about those that are not in?
That aren't marked.
Yeah.
So if we are under $50,000 generally, we do not have to go out on a bid type basis. We do informal price quotes, or we handle that. So for example, look at Panic Bar, about a little bit over the halfway down, $34,000. That's all of that work is handled by district staff or in district. So many of those sorts of things like sprinklers that you see there for $52,000, there's not a no or a yes there. We'll handle a lot of that work as much as we can with our existing staff. We try to take advantage of that, but there are some things that we just cannot do just because of the scope and scale of the project that may happen.
I
So
just
that's why. Good question.
wondered. Thank you.
Okay, additional major projects, just wanted to bring you up to date with some of the major recommendations. As you know, Pocatello High School Phase 2, $9.1 million we have in there for the construction project. Alan Spidell and myself, Alan, who is our maintenance coordinator, we spent a little over 3 hours this morning going through the construction documents, 140 pages of detailed documents in regard to electrical, mechanical, structural, building layout, design, etc., and visited with the architect after that. The plans were submitted last week on Tuesday to the City of Pocatello for plan review. They've indicated that it would take somewhere around 10 days for that plan review, and they would get them back to us. And then we will look at, tentatively, we are looking at a bid date of February 12th if everything comes back from the City of Pocatello on a timely basis. We have to advertise twice before that time in order to get that information out. And we'll do that on our website, and we'll do that through the newspaper and various other construction company websites or places where they go to see various jobs of this nature that are significant. We will do a pre-bid walkthrough on site on February 5th if everything holds true to this timeline, and hopefully be back to the board in the first part of March or maybe even the end of February if we have to do a special meeting to award that bid and to get things moving down the track. As you know, we have a very tight window of a little over a year to finish this project up, and we're anxious to get started with that. So that's a little bit about Pocatello High School. You can see we have a fire alarm panel at Century that has to be done this year that's obsolete now. A couple of awning covers that we're doing for the elementary schools. And then the Century bleachers was a carryover from last year when we ran out of funds and we were not able to do that project because of the lighting and everything. So we are looking at doing that for this next year. And then Highland High School refinished the main gym floor. And I can tell you that we have $32,000 set aside for that, but we just did some further investigation, and we're gonna, excuse me, we're gonna have to replace the entire floor. They said that we would probably be wasting our money if we tried to fix all those dead spots because the floor is to that point. So that was just something that came up. In fact, I didn't have a chance to even share that with superintendent, but he knows now. There's a lot of things I forget to say sometimes because they come up very quickly sometimes, but we just found that out late yesterday afternoon. So
So it probably is more than 32,000.
it's going to be more than $32,000. So we'll do some shifting to make that happen. We'll see how the bids come in for Pocatello High School. And all of this, as you know, is somewhat tentative until we get the bids in for Pocatello High School. All of this is contingent upon a favorable bid. We are working very hard to getting these bids out before two other significant projects that are happening in our community are getting out. So we think we're going to be out there first. We'll see. But more than anything, we hope that we get favorable bid numbers with the climate that we have right now. So. All right, and lastly, this just kind of wraps it up. You'll see that our sinking fund reserve this last year was close to $4 million. It'll be about $2.5 million overall as we go into the following year. Our required maintenance, those are just items that we have to do every year, like replace bark in the playgrounds, plant trees that die, and replace some technology there, that $240,000. Under the interior and exterior requests, we did not fund a lot of projects because of the magnitude of the renovation that's going on with Pocatello High School. And so we have a basketball court for Franklin Middle School that's being proposed. It's about 35, this is an outdoor court. That's our only middle school that doesn't have, and that's a big amenity, if you will, in a middle school. That gets used pretty consistently. And so we're going to do that at Franklin. We have some entry doors at Alameda that we'll put in there to help keep a lot of that cold air out there and help improve the safety a little bit. And there was one other request that slips my mind, so I'll have to follow up with that if you're curious. But those are the major requests there. And then here are just some of the improvements to various things that we've talked about or renovations that we're looking at here. So we talked about the sinking fund reserve sitting at $2.5 or $6 million. And again, I don't think that any of us administratively or as members of the board can thank our patrons enough for the support that they give to this school district to help support and maintain our schools the way that we're able to do so. So we would ask in our following meeting at the regular board meeting that the board would approve this capital improvement program recommendation so that we can start moving forward with some of our bidding that we'll be required to do.
Okay.
Any questions or?
No.
All right. I think that's it.
That's it. Okay,
Thank
thank you. Okay, now we go to, it's your turn.
Okay,
You're up.
absolutely. Let's take a look at F, and if you'll go to that tab, you can see that our meeting next week will be partly into a board reorganization with officers. So you'll see there election of officers, and as we'll have the chair and vice chair and clerk or assistant clerk, as we made that change last year, and assistant treasurer. And then to appoint a treasurer, a clerk, any backup clerks, custodian of public records, appointing an auditor, designate posting locations, and then to adopt a schedule. And so, as you know, this last year, we made the change to meet at noon on these work session days to accommodate one of our board members just a little bit better. And where there's an accommodation made, there's maybe an inconvenience on the other side of that. So you'll have an opportunity to talk about what you would like to see as far as work sessions and board meetings. And we can continue as we have or make some changes. So it's totally up to you. You can see under that as well the volunteering for board committees. We've really reduced those down because of the number of requirements put on us by way of open meeting laws. And so there are opportunities for us to update the board through various reports, but we feel it important that you still sit on some of those other committees, as well as external or community committees. So we'll have an opportunity to talk about that next week as well. And then we'll have board school department visits revised to include Mr. Facer on those. And that's pretty much, I think, that an overview of what we have in mind for next week. We tentatively have a board retreat planned for May 12th. Renee and I went back and forth on that. We looked into June, but we know that's a time when you could actually get away. And then July, we start picking up pretty good for our back-to-school events into July, that first part of August, when all of our administrators are returning. And then May, we know the end of May is pretty congested with all sorts of meetings. And so maybe end of April or first part to the middle part of May. So if you'll look at your calendars and be ready to discuss an opportunity to have a retreat, and you know.
Now retreat means different things.
Right,
Where are we heading, Sun Valley?
Sun Valley
It's
Golf,
called retreat, but it really is the board self-evaluation and evaluating your.
right,
for the
and it's
coming year.
probably within the confines of this room, Mrs. Grainer, as you are well aware. I might be able to get us a room somewhere else, but golf and big dinners aren't part of the
I'm
deal.
part of, okay,
No.
well, I was just
No, I know.
wondering about your definition of retreat for
I
this.
know it.
Didn't we?
I also wondered about how you guys
Yeah.
felt about tying that into work session. Like if we do a short work session in May and then just go right into our meeting.
That's why we picked that day,
Yeah.
is
Just
because
to
it's our
kind
work
of
session
use
day.
separate
More
days.
year.
Yeah, exactly. We could just pick it up, say at 1:30, 2 o'clock, whenever we were to
Right.
finish the other, if you
Bring
maintain
in
the,
some lunch for your.
yeah, we'll get you lunch. We can do that, but, yeah,
Heck of a
Yeah.
deal.
yeah, right?
That's a retreat.
And a bottle of water. Yep.
That's a retreat.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sort of makes
Okay.
sense.
So, something to look forward to next week.
Okay.
All right. Any questions about that?
The only thing, if you guys are gonna propose any time changes, if you wanna give me some heads up about maybe some options to put in the packet for next week,
Okay.
or. if
Time
you want me
changes
to
for
s-
meetings, you mean,
They're fine as they are for me.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with it, but somebody else might.
I'm okay with what we've been doing, but,
Union 5
need to look at that.
Yeah, it's kinda nice to
yeah.
have an evening. So, yeah, I'm for keeping it in
At noon.
place.
We changed our work sessions to noon. So
They
that
used
we
to
don't
just be
have
at
so
one,
many.
so it didn't change a
1:30.
whole lot.
So that's about the only other change. Our other meetings are still at 4:30. So
4:30?
our regular board meetings at 4:30.
5:30.
Oh, the
5.
5:30.
yeah.
Oh, it's usually 4:30 because we have a meeting tech.
Discipline.
Right.
Discipline is.
We'll get you for a special meeting or exec session or something at
Executive sessions.
Yeah,
Okay.
executive session. that's what it is.
4:30, uh-huh.
So it's still
Okay.
5:30
Well, I
unless they
shall leave it
text.
as is.
And I think we had Mr. Manson had a conflict, I think, with his Civitan induction. We actually bumped up board meeting that month.
Right.
Mhm.
And so I think you were here at 4:30. So I don't know how that worked out for you. I mean, as far as patrons coming, we know that might be a 5 o'clock date, or time, excuse me. But